Good evening, Cheese Room, and welcome to our normal Wednesday night rambling show with me, Craig, and my normal Wednesday night co-host, Gibbo, and another debutant to the Cheese Room tonight in Sash from Spurs Reach. So, start with the intros, Gibbo. How has it been for you this week? Good week?
Yeah, mate. Obviously we missed Monday, bank holiday, so looking forward to a little chat with you. And nice to meet Sash. He's hopefully going to tell us a little bit about himself. But yeah, was hoping for a little bit more news rather than going over a mundane 1-0 win against Crystal Palace. But see where the conversation takes us, mate.
Definitely, and as I said, we've got a debutant in Sash. Sash is the co-founder of Spurs Reach, which is a supporters group, which I'll let Sash tell us all about. But being a committee member of East Midlands Spurs supporters group, I'm a big fan of the supporters groups and the role that we play in bringing together fans at the football club, and raising the awareness of the values of our great club. And Sash, having researched and looked into Spurs Reach quite a bit, I've got to say I've been impressed. It's been a magical year for Spurs Reach, hasn't it? And it looks like you've been at the heart of it. So tell us about Spurs Reach and tell us about you.
Spurs Reach. I'll start with myself. I'm Sash Patel. I'm co-founder, as you said, Craig, of Spurs Reach. Lifelong Spurs fan. Blame my dad for that. Took me to my first game in the late '80s. And just been enjoying it ever since with my younger brother and now with my daughter. She's 4 years old, got a season ticket, got her into that a couple of years ago. So she is fully Spurs, hates the colour red, favourite player Harry Kane and Sonny. So it's lovely. It's all her cousins are Arsenal and Liverpool and she is Spurs, and that's great for me. And she's only 4 years old, so it's brilliant. But yeah, Spurs Reach sort of came about probably about three years ago. It was an idea I sort of had. I was working with some people over at something called the Football Supporters Association. They've got a group called Fans for Diversity. So they've been doing a campaign for years, about 7-8 years, with Kick It Out. And a guy called Anwar Uddin, who used to play for West Ham. He sort of kicked all that off and started just talking to people and saying, you know what, we've got loads of people who are from diverse communities living in and around football clubs, but they don't all take part and enjoy the football club that's right on their doorstep. And North London is one of the most diverse places in the UK, but you don't have that full demographic within the stands in the stadiums. And it's sort of like, why is that happening? Because I come to the high road on non-match days sometimes and I see people in Man United tops and Arsenal tops, and I'm thinking, Liverpool tops as well, and I'm thinking, what's going on? You've got that massive stadium next to you and it's there. Come on, guys, just come in, enjoy it. We've got a rich history, our fans are amazing. Why don't what's causing people not to come? And for me, that was a big thing, because I've been coming, I've had a few issues at football before, some racism, some other types of issues, but for me it was really create a group where people could come together, talk about themselves, share views about what they value, talk about their cultures and stuff, because we're all different, but we all celebrate different things and we all sit next to each other. I've got a guy who's Jewish who sits next to me, and I don't know about anything about him and why he didn't turn up to a certain number of games this season, because he was celebrating certain religious holidays and stuff. So it's one of those things where we wanted just to bring people together, celebrate. This is not about educating people. This is about celebrating different religions, different festivals, just learning a bit more about your fellow Spurs fan. And at the end of the day, we are all Spurs fans. So that's the big thing.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because what makes Spurs as a fan base great is its diversity, in my opinion. And if you look back to the very foundation of Spurs, right back when, it was that diversity and differences amongst us is our key strength. And some of the key things that some of the chants that we've historically said, and the Alleluia chant and everything else, all comes from us as fans having the backs of all of our own fans, which come from multiple different range of backgrounds, ethnic origins, religion, etc. And that strength for me anyway, is that ability for us to come together with that commonality of between all of us, which is ultimately Spurs, a great football club that Spurs. And I think it's really interesting. Just picking up on another thing you said there, you talked about that London, North London, and Tottenham is hugely diverse, and that you don't necessarily see that same representation of the local community in the football club. Why do you think that is, Sash? Have you done any research into that as a group, and what's your findings been?
Yeah, so there's been no formal research into that at the moment, but what we're going to do, we've only been live for about 12 months now, and for us it's to work with the foundation, work with community groups to understand what are the main triggers, that why people within that particular community around Tottenham aren't represented in the same way in the stands. But looking at it from a whole in terms of football, it varies with different things. Obviously there's the socio-economic aspect. Football is Premier League football does cost a lot of money to go and watch every week, or even for one match. It's a massive outlay for people, and people aren't in that position to do it. But equally, there are other things. The way that people perceive football and what it means to go to a football match. You've got to be drunk. You've got to, it's all alcohol based. It's the whole hooligan element of the 80s, 70s and 80s, and that stereotype, and that's a problem. People still stereotype football within that way, or they have bad experiences, or they hear of bad experiences from people, and that puts them off completely. And I know some people who have been put off completely going to football, and they used to go for years and years and years, but now their kids don't go because they're just scared not to go. And that's a real shame, because I think football has changed. We've moved forward quite a bit, and you see families coming. You've got people who are in their 70s and 80s still coming. So why not come? Nothing should stop you from coming and supporting your team if you really, really want to.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think one of the biggest endorsements of the work that Spurs Reach have done in your first year is the club recently announced the creation of the fans representative board, and Spurs Reach, alongside the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, proudly writes Spurs Ability have all got a seat within that board, a representation within that board. I mean, that must have been phenomenal news for you as Spurs Reach to get that from the club.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really, really important that and as you said, Craig, the fans, we have a diverse fan base. So when we are looking at a fan advisory board and that board supporting the club, that it needs to take into account a wide, diverse population of fans to make sure that different views and opinions are shared equally within that forum. And lots of people, I've seen on Twitter the comments about when it was first launched. It's like, oh, this is just a stunt by the club. But so Spurs Reach, the Trust, and the other associations, Proud, Lily Whites, and Spurs Ability, we've been working on this with the club. I personally have been for the last 12 months through Spurs Reach, and I know the Trust have been doing that for even longer. So it's been there in the background. It's finally there to be launched now, which is fantastic. I think what we need to do is just make sure we've got the right people who come on board and represent all the fans, because that's really important. We represent all the fans and make sure that our club carries on being strong and we have a clear direction, because I think that's the one big thing that we're missing right now. And I know, Gibbo, you mentioned that earlier before the start of the show, that it's really important that we look at strategy and we look at where we're going, because I think we're lost.
Yeah. And what's your hopes and aspirations, Sash, in terms of what we're going to get with the advisory board, and having those representatives from all those different groups and representatives of the fan base? What do you see as the outcome, or what's your hopes?
My hope is to influence. I think that's the key thing. Fans have a lot to say, and it's right. We have a lot to say because we spend a lot of money and time and energy, both home and away, supporting the club, and we are with the club for life. So for me, it's really, really important that if a fan has something to say about their experience, about the team, something important that they need to put across, that they have a platform to do that. And I think that's where the fan advisory board gives a proper formal platform into the club to get them to actually stand up and listen to the fans in that way.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. I think some of there's been criticism, hasn't there? We won't go into it in detail, but there has been criticism of the trust over the past few years about them not being truly representative of the fan base, and why should they be the only formal, platform, if you like, or positive engagement with the boardroom at Spurs. I think this new advisory board takes that to a whole new level now, doesn't it? Because that excuse doesn't exist anymore, because it's not just the trust; it's, as you go, all those different groups working collectively together. To represent the fans, and not only the groups, but also there is nominations being put forward, hasn't there? People will be able to nominate themselves to go onto the onto the board. I understand there's going to be a comprehensive assessment, if you like, to ensure that we're getting the right people who are truly representing the fan base onto that. So I think it's going to be nothing but positive for the club. Really excited.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just going back on that point that you mentioned about the trust, I didn't know about the trust until probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Right. But then when I found out about them, I thought, right, I want to get involved. I want to hear what's going on. And they've got thousands of members. And for me, that's the thing. Lots of people have opinions and views and stuff. And you see it on Twitter day and night. People have lots of views and opinions, and rightly so. But if you want to make a change, that's the thing. You've got to get involved. You've got to really put your money where your mouth is and get involved. These groups are voluntary groups. People get involved with these and do these on top of their day jobs. A bit like yourselves, guys. This is a passion. And if you've got a passion and you want to make a change, then get involved. That's what I say. And that's why we created Spurs Reach, and we've got loads more people getting involved with us now, because they see we're making change, we're influencing change, and things can happen if we all come together. So yeah, I'm really actually looking forward to meeting the other people who are going to be on the board and representing all the fans.
Honestly, Sash, you've absolutely put goosebumps on my arms there, listening to you talk about that with such passion. It's brilliant. Gibbo, any reflections from you before I bring Jack in?
No. I mean, I've just sat back. I'm happy to be educated. You know me, Craig. I don't know a lot about, the sport. I've always only ever really concentrated on football that's on the pitch, and obviously times are changing and things are getting different. So I'm just happy to sit here and listen and educate. And like we spoke about before, I think this club, especially at the new stadium, even though I don't go anywhere near as much as I used to, but one day I will be going back. And hopefully I will be taking my son and my grandchildren. My daughter won't have a bar of it. She hates sport or anything like that. But you know what I mean? And like those types of things, you want to be able to take them there and not witness anything out, not witness anything nasty. You just want them to turn up, and you want it to be a real, like a fun place to be and a welcoming place. So, yeah, I mean, it's great that all these things are happening. I think. Yeah. I mean, Jack, do you have any? Obviously, Sash, welcome, Jack. This is Jack.
That's me, yeah.
A little bit late. We obviously haven't been able to get him to introduce himself. But yeah, anything, Jack, from what you've heard? Anything?
No, I'm sorry for being a little late. Work ran a little long for me today, but I enjoyed the what I did get to hear. And from my perspective in America, fan support or supporters groups are completely different, because as you guys may have some inclination, we don't have clubs in the traditional sense. They're not, the leagues control so much, and fans don't really have, even ownership has limited amounts of ability to affect the team, because when you work in a league with revenue sharing or salary caps and draft picks and all that sort of stuff, it's a totally different structure. So it's always been somewhat foreign, and quite frankly very interesting for me to learn the culture as I try to get up to speed over these last 10-15 years and reading as many books and about the history and all that sort of stuff. And I caught in the beginning when I joined in, you were talking about there's still this perception of what football was in the 80s, for example. And my only experience is in the more modern, sanitized, very safe environment. I mean, I actually, my first game was an away game at Southampton, and I was somewhat actually surprised that the fight broke out after the match, as we were walking back towards the center of town between Tottenham supporters and Saints supporters, and and these are fans that don't actually have a lot of hostility to it. So I enjoy this culture. I'm very excited about the idea that there might be some level of movement that has the interest of the fan, as well as a balanced look at the realities of the club and what it faces and the challenges of the club face. And I think it's a great thing that's going on with an advisory board. I'm really quite hopeful to see it actually has, if it actually gets teeth and has some traction. And I applaud you for saying, if you want to make a change, you have to get involved. You can't just throw your stuff up on social media.
Yeah.
And that's so, Sash, that's the one thing you said to me that's really hit home for me. And that's one thing that really resonates with me is, people can have views about Tottenham and want to see change in Tottenham, etc. Be proactive, be constructive, and get involved with the right groups, and become part of the trust, become part of Spurs Reach, whatever your affiliation is, and actively engage in that, because they need the help and they need the support. And if you feel that the trust isn't, or Spurs Reach or whatever it isn't representing your views as a fan, the only way you can change that is by getting involved in influencing it and having a positive impact and a constructive dialogue with these groups. We need more of it. So brilliant.
Sash,
love it.
Just one.
Excellent.
Sash,
Well,
Sash,
go on.
sorry, Craig. Sash, so all
That's
the
right.
work you do for Spurs Reach, is that sort of voluntary on top of your day job? So
so it's not just myself. So like all the other supporters clubs as well. So I was part of a supporters club, Maidenhead Spurs, before, and it's the same thing. It's all voluntary, but with Spurs Reach, because we're an association, it requires a bit more time and attention. But literally it's 8 of us. We've got a great committee together, and we all literally, meetings at 9 p.m. in the evening can go on for a couple of hours. We'll be talking every day through WhatsApp to get stuff done. We hosted a Ramadan iftar event, right? The first one of its kind, by fans, for fans. And we had staff coming in on their days off because they were like, wow, I'm Muslim. I've never seen this at my place of work. I want to see what it's all about. And that was so powerful. It's not just about the fans, it's about the staff, the environment, the culture that's changing and stuff. And we do it completely voluntary. Everybody says, oh, you must get loads of perks. No perks at all. There's no tickets. There's no, we might get to meet a player if we're doing an interview, but it's sort of, you sat down, you do an interview with them. Thank you very much. And they're off. But there's a lot of hard work which goes on behind the scenes. So, but if you want to make a change, get involved.
Yeah, and there must be stuff, because this is nowhere near what we do. Is sort of like nowhere near as important as the work you're doing. It's not important, really. It's just a bit of a hobby. But the time that sort of goes into this, sometimes you think, putting the time and effort. But also the work you guys are doing on top of your own, day jobs and that, to try and make things better and try and change, is remarkable, really. So, fair play to you. Well done.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, brilliant. I applaud you. Excellent. Okay, well, let's talk football for a bit, shall we? So, a miraculous thing happened this week, Jack. Spurs won a football game.
Yes, they did.
What did you make to the game? Happy?
Well, obviously you can't be upset with 3 points. You should never be upset with 3 points, right? I will be brief in my comments, because the only thing I was actually playing at the same time and wasn't able to record because it was on a stream. So I've only seen the what I saw through Spurs play and various highlights. But I will say this, and I also, unfortunately, I've got a crutch because I tore my meniscus in the game. But anyway, so but from what I could tell, what I really liked was some tactical flexibility, some innovation a little bit, even though the game was obviously somewhat of a tepid affair at times. But the idea that, for the first 4 or 5 minutes, people were trying to work out the formation, that's something to get excited about, right? I mean, and the idea that, that they were actually changing to having a little bit of a fluid system depending on where the ball was on the pitch and who had possession is wonderful. Because I will just make this comment. I was racing back here to get to this because I had a meeting that ran long, and I'm listening to the CL final, and I listened to Mkhitaryan score in the semifinals of the CL, and I can tell you right now that if we had signed that player over the summer, all holy hell would have broken loose in the supporters group that we're signing some has-been that used to play in the Premier League, couldn't hack it anymore, and went to Italy. And he's putting a goal in the CL final. My only point about this, I'm not an expert on AC Milan or Inter, any of these teams, but if you play a system that players understand and they're very good pros and they have experience and they understand what they're supposed to do and they buy into it, it's amazing what you can get out of a team if you put that sort of system in place. And that's just a great example of it. I mean, so I'm excited that we're trying to do something different for those last few games. And so that's my take, less about the comment of the actual game, but just the overall, that we've got maybe something different, and you can show that these players are not dross. They actually are good players if you put them in the right opportunities to succeed.
Yeah, Gibbo, you watched the game, didn't you?
Yeah.
What's your talk us through your sort of thoughts on the game and reflections?
Well, like Jack said, it was a bit of a tepid affair, wasn't it? But it was nice to see that we were actually trying to keep possession of the ball. Obviously we were walking in the group before and people saying, "Oh, it looks like we're doing something different," and it was like quite exciting. It wasn't as exciting when once the whistle went, but you've got to be happy with 3 points. Kane scored again. As been mentioned on our pod, there was green shoots, but yeah, it was just, and it, I mean, I don't like to say, but changes were made. Certain players didn't play and different players came in, and that was good to see as well, because there's the same sort of players doing the same sorts of things all the time. So yeah, I just enjoyed. I mean, we tried to play. It didn't always come off, but at least we tried to play. There's still things that need to be resolved. We are, but it's like we've always said. We've spent 4 or 5 years playing negative, counter-attacking, sort of like slow, turgid football. So it's not going to happen overnight. Getting players to knock it about a little bit quicker. And I thought Porro looked good, but like Porro can't defend. So don't ask him to. And like Royale came in and did really well. Royale can't attack, so don't ask him to. But he can defend, and he did that, and he did a good job. And it was just nice to see something different. And we won, and we didn't concede. And if you're watching that as a neutral, I should imagine you watch that thinking, Palace probably ain't going to score here today. Spurs are going to win this. I'd like to have seen more goals. And if you're going to be ultra sort of negative, you can sort of say, that midfield needs. If you put somebody else a little bit more attack minded and with a little bit more imagination, a little bit more guile in that midfield, and you're pushing on again, aren't you? And like I've said on here before, those players aren't as bad as they've been playing for a while. If you get the right coaching and we get the right mentality and the right culture, which is something we'll come on to later, because obviously our captain said that, and you just get 1 or 2 more players in and you get rid of some whose mentality has been is that old Spurs mentality, and we start changing things up a bit, we'll be all right. It's not all doom and gloom. We can push on again. So yeah, I mean, 3 points, 1-0, clean sheet, green shoots.
58% possession in the game. I mean, that's the highest I think I can remember for a long time. So,
I mean, I think Palace turned up. I think Palace turned up to not lose. They look like a team who turned up to not lose, but they have got, a threat going forward. So yeah.
Sash, what did you make to the game? I mean, are you happy with the progress since Conte 2.0 left?
Yeah, to be honest, I am, because what we've seen with Mason is he's playing the players in the positions that and the tactics that are going to be more favourable for us. So he's playing to strengths. That's the key thing. Me with my friends in our WhatsApp group, that's all we talk about, is that you've got a set of players who can play certain way. They can't play the Conte way. We were never there to play the Conte way. It was never going to happen unless he changed the whole back five. It was just impossible to see, and to see it week in, week out, just go into the game. It's sort of I was dreading those 90 minutes. It was just awful. Just sat there watching every week, going, right, here we go again. What's going to be different? Oh, nothing. But at least Mason's making a change. He's playing those players in those positions, and the players seem like they're playing for each other again. You can start to see that there is a bit of change within the camp, and people are not afraid to say what they want now. You know, I don't know whether things about what Ollie Skip said in the dressing room that time were true or not, but maybe we need to ask Steve whether that was true or not. He can find out for us, can't he? But that'd be really, really good. It's just, you know, the level of participation by the players to try and stay in their post is going to be the key thing, because there's been no competition.
Yeah, a couple of things just like to touch on. Dyer being dropped, Gibbo, was that a surprise for you?
I was surprised, actually, pleasantly surprised. I mean, you know, Dyer's been a good servant for Spurs, but I think he's been playing pretty poorly. I think the fact that he didn't play allowed us to probably play higher up the pitch, because you can't leave space behind Dyer, can you? As you know, the Rashford goal against Man United showed. So, you know, I think that allowed us to push up a little bit higher, and obviously Romero's a little bit more. He's a little bit more aggressive, isn't he? You know, he goes in to make the tackles, and if he doesn't take the ball, he takes the man. But yeah, and Richarlison put it about a bit, didn't he? You know, I'm not a massive Richarlison fan, but he had lots of energy and lots of enthusiasm. And I think Davis is good in that role that he played, you know, sort of like a left wing back hybrid. I think he did well. So yeah, it was. I mean, Dyer's the big one being dropped, isn't he? I mean, you know, I've probably been quite polite, but he's been shocking lately, hasn't he? So, you know, and I think everybody will probably agree that was the change a lot of people wanted to see. And, you know, and like we'll get into it later, I think Dyer's one for me, that he's had his time at Spurs now, and there's just too many players at Spurs who are too comfortable, like Lloris coming straight back in when he was fit. And obviously he's got injured again apparently now, so he's not playing. And Dyer's another one for me. So I was glad that he sort of wasn't picked. And also, you know, Mason was always going to get that stick thrown at him that he just picked his mates, and Dyer was going to be one of them. I know he doesn't do that, but obviously him not picking Dyer was like a little bit of him as well, showing, look, no, I'm my own man. I'm going to make my own decision. So fair play to him.
I mean, I think he's been helped, hasn't he, Mason, with the return of Royal from injury, Ben Davis coming back from injury, which has enabled him to change things. But Jack, Romero's been on the receiving end of quite a lot of criticism at sort of that right centre back position in recent weeks. What did you make to him coming in that centre of the back three? And do you think that is a position we could see him deployed in more towards now at the end of the season?
Well, till now at the end of the season. I hope he keeps it. Yeah, if Longley is fit, I don't know I haven't read about what his shoulder situation is, but
apparently he's fit.
Okay, then I'm completely comfortable with Emerson and Romero and Longley forming a back three. I think that would be perfect for me. I don't want to see Dyer back in. I don't know if it's just playing the center that he was playing a little bit more calm, reserved, or that we contained their attack and didn't let them run at the back line that they often can do, that caused it. But he was excellent at Liverpool after the penalty kick that he gave. He has it in him. He just needs to be more consistent. I mean, this team will go as far as good center backs will take it, and he's the person next year has got to step up and be a consistent player for us, whether it's on the right side or the center. That's up to the coaches. I don't have that kind of knowledge, but you have to have stability at those positions. I mean, the success of the great Poch team, of course, was the stability at center back. I mean, even Sanchez looked like a hero at times, right? So it's definitely, I definitely think that I would like to see him in the center for the rest of the last three games, no doubt.
Yeah. Sash, what did you make to, obviously, our saviour that is, what is fast becoming our saviour in Emerson Royal coming in, and you know, I think it's the first time I can remember him playing in that right centre back position in the back three. I don't think Conte ever played him there, to be fair. How do you think he did in that position? Do you think it made a difference?
Yeah, do you know what? I think he felt comfortable. We know that he likes getting up the pitch. So it wasn't a get the ball out to him and then turn around and then pass it back into the middle and go sideways. I think he brought a change about that. I think he looked like he was confident. And that's great, because that's what we need, is a bit more confidence. I think we struggle, like Gibbo said, Eric Dyer's been a great servant to the club, but he just doesn't feel comfortable. It just looks like he feels like there's going to be a mistake in him at some point, and it's just going to be, another goal, and that's the frustrating thing, and that spreads to the other players. Whereas having Emerson in that position there, I think that brought a bit more stability to the other players around him, a bit more confidence, and we were ready to push up higher up the pitch, which was great, and that's definitely helped.
Mm. Yeah, and Gibbo, looking to fan favourite Porro, obviously seemed to have one of his better games for us. We got the goal just on the edge of half time, started by Kane with a lovely ball out to Porro, and then Porro with a inch perfect cross onto Kane's head, and that's just meat and two veg for Kane, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, mate, he's at the club. They think he's got good delivery as well, because he takes all the dead balls, doesn't he? Now, we haven't had someone who takes free kicks and a dead ball specialist for quite a while. But yeah, great cross. But I don't think the guy can defend. He can probably be coached to defend a little bit better. But having, he's had Romero behind him, he's had Sanchez behind him, Tanganga played behind him, and like we said, Romero hasn't really been at it since he's come back from the World Cup. So Royale coming back in, and like we've always said, who is a good defender, obviously helps. And if you can play higher up the pitch, you can obviously get him higher, and that's where he's going to do more damage. Like I've always said, for Sporting Lisbon, he played in a team that keeps possession all the time. He's not a defensive player. He is an attacking player. Even though he plays like wing back, he's an attacking player, and that's what we signed him to do. What he did on Saturday is what he's been signed to do. And if you go over, if you watch all the all the games he's been involved in, yeah, defensively he has been poor, but he's contributed attacking in an attacking sense quite a bit. He scored a great goal against Man United, scored a decent goal against Southampton. He's had that cross. I think his assists, he's got a few goals from that position, and his assists are, he hasn't got loads and loads because he hasn't been here that often, but he's got a decent amount of assists for the game he's played. So I think there's a decent player in there over the course of a season. Get him in a system where we can get him higher up the pitch and play him up there. I think Mason said he added an extra guy to the press. And was that Porro he added? Because, he's got a bit of pace. He can beat a man. And the one thing I like about him is he's keen, isn't he? He's a good player, but he's keen as well. He's getting the fans up, and he seems like a real character about the place. And that's what we need. We need some new characters in that team. We need new, we need like new blood, new sort of a new sort of hierarchy coming into the club, a new set of people that are, who are going to set the standard. So hopefully he can be one of them. But yeah, really good.
Yeah, one of the most pleasing things for me, I think, and you've just touched on it there, was it did seem like we were pressing a lot more aggressively than we have in full season, to be honest. Sash, is that how you saw it as well? A lot better in the press with Porro joining in that press?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot more consistency with that, which was great, because everybody was doing it and everybody was on the same page, which, we haven't seen we start to see it initially during the Conte sort of matches, but it just sort of died a death, and you only had one or two players going. So yeah, definitely. And I think that worked. And I think one of you guys mentioned, it's Porro is playing in his preferred position. We're playing the strengths again. That's the key thing. So Mason knows what their key strengths are, and he's got them out on pitch playing to that, and that's what I think. Hopefully, with 3 games to go, we might actually see the team gelling a bit more and delivering three great results, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what people want at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that at the end of the. We'll talk about that as we get towards the.
Can I just this adding an extra body to the press?
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to do, because for how brilliant Kane is, he's not great at pressing, is he? He doesn't, obviously, getting older and a few injuries. He can't press like he used to. So adding that extra press will hopefully take will help him out, and we'll reap the benefits from that as well. So that's from Mason's point of view. That's another good sort of tactical switch.
I mean, I thought Kane probably ran the most distance he's probably ran in recent months. Actually, I don't know if anyone's got stats in front of them, but I don't know, Jack, if your son's had a chance to look at that, but it felt
I don't have his stats in front of me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it felt to me like Kane certainly put in the kilometres a lot more than he had in previous weeks and months. And I don't know whether that's because he was contributing to that press perhaps a bit more than he has been doing. But of course, it's easier to press when you've got 2 or 3 other guys doing it with you. It's not a pointless exercise, because you're creating those traps potentially.
Well, we'll come on to it, won't we? But I think Kane, there's a change of, I think the captain's armband on Kane is not starting to take a toll. I think the opposite. We'll come on to that in a minute, but I think he's starting to take a little bit more responsibility and what's the word? Making himself and others starting to make others and himself accountable. I think that armband is now. I don't think the guy who usually wears it will be coming back to wear it. I think Kane's been made captain. Now, do you get what I mean? I know he obviously is because he's got the armband, but I think that decision within the club, Harry, you're the man now. You always, but now you're captain as well, the real captain. So yeah,
I mean, I think we'll go to that, Gibbo, because you brought it up, and and I think it's a really interesting point. This comes, please correct me if I'm wrong, Gibbo. This comes on the back of the recent interview that Kane's just been released, where Kane has talked about the culture at the club a lot, talked about some of the meetings that he'd been having with Daniel Levy and the player committee, if that's what you want to call it. And they've talked about how standards have dropped, that things haven't been as good as they were previously, and we need to get back to that. And he talked at length, didn't he, about how he wanted to be part of that and he wanted to help the club. I mean, it was, as you said, Gibbo, I think it really hammered home to me that he's taken the responsibility on his shoulders now, and that he wants to, I got from it anyway, maybe this is my blinkers, but I got from it that he wants to really help Spurs deliver that culture change and move forward. Am I reading too much into it, Jack? Did you see the interview? Do you think the same?
Well, we're all looking at things with blue tinted glasses here. So obviously when I saw that the quotes without any help from anyone else, and my first thought was, oh, that sounds like he wants to be part of the solution. I mean, I'm not going to say that couldn't change in a week, but it did certainly, the tone of it certainly seemed to suggest he wants to be part of the solution and not looking for an exit, certainly. And I agreed, Gibbo. I think he's the type of man that, given the actual armband and the fact that he grew up in this club, his family lives in London, don't ever discount that. Not everyone wants to move their family, up north. Just for football. So, granted, he would be, you could make the argument that maybe Manchester United is closer to winning the title than we are, but I don't know if that's really true. And I don't know that he believes that himself, and you still always remember that Daniel's the one who decides whether he goes or stays, like it or not. And I think that politically right now for him, that would be a disastrous move, even if he walks for free the summer after next. So I think that, I think the idea that he's going to leave this summer is, in my mind, very remote, very, very remote. And we'll just see if something can be put together with the right hire, the right appointment, the right director of football, that the foundation's laid so that next season's campaign, whatever it may be, shows that there's not just green shoots, but there are actual plants growing and thriving. And, he says, I can finish my career here. I don't want to go to Germany. I don't want to go to Spain. I want to stay here and be the man. That would be ideal, of course, because there's no amount of money that we can get that's going to replace his production or what he means to the fans. So it almost seems to be economically more sensible if he's going to run down the contract and you can't re-sign him. I'd still take that over trying to get $100 million this summer, especially with our ability to buy and sell players.
Yeah. Sash, how important is Kane to this football club and ultimately helping us to progress?
I think he's critical. He said it in that interview. That thing, he's spoken out. He's saying things need to change, and I very much believe what Craig and Jack. I'm with you guys on this one. That he wants to be part of that, and he wants to be part of the solution, and I think he wants to leave a legacy behind. So I think it feels to me that he's gone, well, do you know what, I could win trophies, I could win them elsewhere, but I'd rather try and win them at Spurs, and I'd rather try and leave my legacy behind, not just as the club's top goal scorer, not just as England's top goal scorer or the Premier League's, but I did something at Spurs, and then we will finally have that statue of him outside the stadium, which he should have, because I think that's the big thing. I think he's a Spurs man through and through, and he wants the club to go forward, and he doesn't want to jump ship when things are really bad. And I think personally, he was sold a story a couple of years ago with the new stadium, with Mourinho coming in and everything. Everything was going to be different and rosy. I think he's seen that now. He's seen, well, a bigger change needs to happen, and it's not just the manager, it's a cultural change, it's a player change, it's everybody, the staff, everybody around him needs to change. We need to have that positive mindset that we are a club that deserves to win, to challenge, and bring back some trophies.
Yeah, no, great point, Sash. Just a couple of, and I think you just highlighted a few messages there. I just wanted to go back to one, if I may, Gibbo, and I'd just ask you, Mystic Gibbo, what you think on this, because I think this is a really interesting one. I mean, the way that Kane is speaking, the way even Levy has said it himself in recent communications with the fans, that Harry is definitely seems to be having a significant input behind the scenes. He's talked about what needs to change in terms of the culture, and he wants to be part of that solution. Do you think that he is talking to Daniel about what that new manager needs to be, and not necessarily who, but the qualities and what we need from that next manager?
I should imagine conversations took place, and basically him saying that the standards are dropped. I should imagine they've had that conversation, and I should imagine that he said, if I'm going to stick around, this is what we need to be doing. This is what I want. This is what I'm about. There's not enough people here who are about the same, and this is what we need to do if we want to get back to where we were at the height of Poch. Then this is what we need to do. And so I should imagine that he is saying, not saying exact managers, but I should imagine he's saying the types of things that the new manager needs. What the players, what they want to expect from the players, what he wants the manager to expect, the standards they want to set. What we're going to be about. And so I should imagine those conversations are taking place. And it's great that he's obviously putting out there as well, because I always remember, I can't remember where, but like a journalist was saying, when you go to interview somebody at a top club, you turn up early in the morning, say, look, you're Man City, or when Liverpool were winning, and you'd get there and there'd be players at the training ground before they're meant to be there. And they're there, and some of them are in the gym, or some of them are doing something. I'm going to have a run. Before we get out on the training ground, or I'm going to do that. And those are the standards. They set high standards for themselves. They want to be fitter. They all want to be there. They want the team to be all about the team. They want everything to be top notch. And when you're not, when you go to a club that's not, in that situation, people turn up on time and they just go, they just literally go through the motions. And I can imagine there's quite a bit of that's happened at Spurs. So, yeah, I should imagine he's and he's probably put it on Levy's toes as well. There's got to be more care taken with football decisions, better footballing decisions. This club needs to be where it was 5 years ago, not where it is now. We want to be challenging for us. And like Sash said about Spurs, about Kane, we are more than capable of winning FA Cups. We are more than capable of winning League Cups. If we get the Conference League, I know a lot of people don't want it, but that's a trophy we can win, and people will take the piss or whatever, but it's a trophy. It's a start. You've got to start somewhere. The Europa League's a trophy we can go into. We might have to do things a little bit different in those trophies, but but we can do it. And the top four, we're not a million miles away from that, even though we all sort of think we are sometimes because it's so boring. But it's not. Raise those standards, raise those expectations, demand more off each other. And Kane's starting to do that, and it's fucking brilliant. And that's what I want to see.
I guess my mind wonders, Jack, to the comments that Kane has made about standards dropping and the culture and everything else. So, I mean, looking at the fact we had Mourinho as manager, we had that, inconvenient time where we had Nuno, and then we've had Conte, which are arguably, win now managers, two of the best managers in football. Why has the culture dropped in the way that it has, do you think? What's created that? Because if you've got Conte at the helm for the 18 months we've had him, we had Mourinho for the 18 months before that, how's that happened?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I had the same thought because I don't know, because I'm puzzled by the comments. I'm trying to figure out, like you, where to piece that together, because I know that his relationship with Jose, I believe anyway, from what I read and understood from everything, his relationship with Jose was very good. I mean, he had the best season of almost any premier attacker in the history of the league, in terms of goal involvement, right? So I think his relationship was very, very sound. I remember comments from him saying, he expects us to be men and professionals, not micromanage stuff. And I wonder, however, the relationship that he had with Conte, I'd be curious to know what kind of, I know that I'm sure there was a great deal of respect professionally, but I don't know how well that maybe they got on from a personality standpoint, because Jose and Conte are completely, similar from a high level, but completely different stylistically, and how they manage a team and how they manage people, certainly. And I'm not sure that he was probably a big fan of Conte routinely throwing his tantrums and his erratic, manic behavior around, because Harry is anything but manic and erratic in his behavior. So and maybe they just clashed, and that's just a polite way of saying that, the last year wasn't good for us, and I don't want to see that again. And it's easier to talk about culture and standards and that sort of stuff and just code. But I because I don't think that Conte was one who tolerated low standards. That was part of the problem. He was the one who said when he first got there, I didn't realize how low the level was, which I think offended a lot of people. And he talked about how, the players weren't up for it. And that final tirade where he self-sacked himself was all about, the standards aren't high enough and these people aren't good enough and I can't do anything with these people. So I just wonder if it was really just maybe coded language, because he just, the whole environment in that last 9 months with Conte was so toxic that he says, we can't have that again. We got to get back to the feel of the club we had when Pochettino was here, because there's no question that everyone was pulling in the same direction back then. So it didn't get over the line, but everyone's pulling in the same direction. Everyone had each other's back.
But I know you'll come to Sash. Sorry, Sash. I was just about to say, like he said about the standards, Conte probably wouldn't have done this, but like Pochettino, when push come to shove with him and his job was on the line and he decided, right, I've got to do this my own way. I'm going to set my own standards. This is what I'm going to do. Kabul, Adebayor, Lennon, I don't want you anywhere near the team. I'm going to put players in this team. We're going to do what I want. Conte saying players are selfish and they won't do what he wants. Well, don't play them then. Just get put in the players until you can get other players who will do what you want. That's sort of, I think just like Conte in the end, just give up. You didn't really want to be there. And that's when the standards start to drop, because people sort of know what's going on. And that's what he wants. As well, he's talking about the culture and the standards. Let's get someone in who's not doing us a favour. We want someone who wants to be at Spurs and wants to coach us and doesn't think that they're doing us the biggest favour in the world by coaching us and coming and being the figurehead of our club. Sorry to butt in, Sash. I'm just trying to the Conte and Jose, how I feel it went down with them in the end.
No, and Joe, you know what, it makes sense. And for me, it's, when Harry talks about culture, I don't think it's just about the first team. It's very much Pochettino involved the academy side of the team, the under 21s, the under 18s, etc., into the first team a bit more. There was a bit more integration. I think that's what's missing. So, Jose didn't do that. Conte didn't do that.
That's true.
And you can see that now with the under 21s, because the under 21s, where are they going? They've had a really, really poor season, and the fact is that they know they're not going to get into the first team. So what's the point? They're all looking for moves out. And that's the problem. They've sort of turn up to work, get paid, and go home, and that's it. Whereas the under 17s and the under 18s are fighting for something right now. And I think that's what we need. I think we need that integration with the academies. We've got Jermaine Defoe, Yaya Toure, Chris Powell there, great people within the club. Why are we not utilizing them more with the first team? Put a bit more competition in, get those first team players worried about their place, get them fighting for their place again, and let's get this talent moved forward a lot quicker.
Such an interesting thing, isn't it? How it's all playing out at this moment in time. It really is interesting. But of course, I guess moving on to what's now, Mason stepping in for his second stint as caretaker manager. Really, really interesting, actually. And I guess, Sash, come to you. I know you're a season ticket holder as well. What have you seen different between Mason now to Mason the last time he stepped in after the Mourinho sacking?
I think he feels a lot more confident. You can see that on the touchline. I think he was slightly more quiet and reserved back then. I think he's learnt a lot from Mourinho, Conte, but I think he's developed his own style a bit, and I think he's becoming more involved with the players directly. And you can actually see that they're actually listening to him. They're not seeing him as somebody who's, young, a youngish guy with not a lot of experience. They're seeing him as the manager. They're seeing him as the leader. And I think that's what I'm seeing on the touchline, is that he is leading that team now. And he's making very much sure that the whole team is part of the decision-making process as well, which I think definitely helps. I think the last 2 seasons, our players have just been shouted at and told what to do, and some of them just don't like it, and they've down tools. That's what I think. But you can see them playing for him, and I think he's still got a long way to go. And lots of people said, "Oh, shall we have him as the manager next season?" I think, do you know what? I think he'd be great, but I think he needs support. And if he has the right level of support with him, so people like Jermaine Defoe, Chris Powell, Yaya Toure, people who have been there, who have seen it, that might work. But what do we want as a club? Where are we going? What's our strategy? Because I think we need to understand that first before we decide where we're going with a manager.
Gibbo, how impressed have you been with Mason?
Yeah, man, I think he's done all right. I think he's just, he's got him enjoying it a bit more again, hasn't he? That makes a big difference. Obviously, he relates to a few of them a little bit better. He knows a few of them. He's trying. He's obviously got his own ideas of what he wants to do, and he's trying stuff. There's obviously stuff he saw that wasn't working under the previous regime, and he's trying to change it, and that's great. So, I totally agree with Sash. He's probably a lot more confident. He's got a few more ideas. He's been coaching for a few more years since then. I mean, I don't want Mason to get the job. Because I want to see a whole new culture developed at Spurs. So I want to see as many of the old guard gone as possible. Obviously Kane's an anomaly and Son's a great player, but that and I'd like to see Mason go out and do what Carrick's done. Carrick's gone out and gone to Middlesbrough. He's he's got ideas, but he's been able to go out and develop his own style and make mistakes and them not be too high profile, so he can sort of learn from his mistakes and work out how to do it better. I'd like him to go out and work out, look, this is how I want to play. I can't, you can't, it's really difficult to do that because we want to be a top 4 team, don't we? And it's really difficult to do that whilst trying to push for trophies and finish top 4. So he can go somewhere else and he can do that and find people for his own backroom staff that he trusts who have got the same vision as him. And, or even if it's somebody older to come in alongside him, to just have an old experienced assistant to just sort of help him out. But I think that's what he needs to do. And teams in the Championship and the Football League are trying to play better football and stuff now. So he can go out there and he can do that and he can learn his trade. And then eventually, if everything goes to plan, that our paths will cross again and he'll get offered the job. But I just think he's obviously He's obviously his own man. He's starting to be his own man more. You know, I think towards the end with Conte and Stellini, it was a bit like, you know, you saw him on the side of the pitch a bit like, you know, what's going on? I think he's got his own ideas, and he needs to go out there and work on those ideas and impress them on other people and get it and get himself, you know, get himself even more tactically astute and even more confident and a real belief in a real plan of what he wants to do. So, and I think that's the best for him. I don't want him to stay and always be the caretaker manager when someone gets sacked, because that's what he will end up being. You know, he's his own man. Go out there and be your own man. And that's what I'd like to see him do.
But given the chairman's track record, maybe it's not a bad insurance policy.
Yeah, I mean, what do you hope for Mason? That's fine. What do you hope for Mason, Jack? What's your you know, where do you see him going in his career trajectory?
You know, it's I always forget how absolutely young he is, and how short how young he was when his career was cut short. So he's got a lot of time, and I think, you know, I'm sure I have no doubt that he wants the job. I mean, why wouldn't you? And I'm sure he believes in himself that this is the right move for him, the right timing. I agree that people who've mentioned Gibbo, you just said, you know, the spotlight is so bright. I mean, and the pressure is so high. The room for, and now he might get a little bit more of a break from the fan base just because he is, you know, one of our own. But still, it's just, you know, even with what is it next year or the year after, that 5 spots theoretically because of coefficients of England versus the other leagues gets into Champions League, is still, it's just a very bright spotlight to put on him. And I agree with you. If I were advising him, I would say, hey, you should find a championship club, bring him up, you know, go down to a place where you're still in England and you stay with the culture, you keep your relationships, you learn the players, because that's a great place to go finding, you know, the people you want to buy. So, hey, stay around and just, and you're right, there's a little bit less of a bright spotlight. I think that's the perfect move. That's what my advice would be to him, because I don't think that it's the right timing for him to take on the job. It's just there's too much at stake. There's the summer window. Good Lord, just think about all the players coming back, the players that's got to be sold, the players that may have to just do a Doherty and just terminate the contract. There's just a lot of moving parts, and I just don't know if he's the right guy for that.
67 watching as of right now. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Really helps the channel, promotes the great work and the commitment that, you know, all the guys tonight are putting into this, and the Friday show, the Monday shows, and the reaction shows, etc. So please do like and subscribe. Jack, building on from what you've just said there, it dovetails nicely to where we want to go. Is you talked about the future and some of the challenges that we face as a club in the summer. You talked about the return of the 50 million on loan first team players we've got doing all sorts of things across Europe. You know, under the context of a European football market that can't afford anything. We've got obviously the players like Kane coming into the contract, players coming towards the end in terms of Lloris and Dyer, decisions to be made on Tanganga, Sessegnon, and so on and so forth. We are lacking a director of football still. So how important is it that the club get on and make a decision about what that will be for the director of football, and potentially linking that to the new manager, and how quickly do we need to get on and do that? Sash?
Sorry, just trying to unmute myself. I think it's really important. I think, John, we've got Scott Munn. Is it Scott Munn? Yeah, coming in July. So being our, you know, chief football officer. So it's going to be July. Yeah.
The same way Pat Paratici was in July. Yeah, right. Yeah. Back a couple of years ago.
But yeah, I think it's really important, because they're going to set the stall out in terms of where we're going and what we want to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years. So I think it's really, really important, and I hope that Daniel Levy and Scott together, well, because I know that Scott Munn's not going to be allowed to just make that decision by himself, that we make it a footballing one, and we don't make it one just to appease fans, or I want it to be one where it's actual being proper thought into it in terms of what we want to do as a club, what we want to be recognized as a club. And our club, our fans, we all deserve to get some of those glory days back. There's a generation of Spurs fans who haven't seen us win a single trophy yet, and that's a real shame, because we have great footballers, we have a great history. So yes, a director of football, very, very quick, needs to come in as quick as possible to make sure that we can start making those moves and not wait around till deadline day and just be left with £30 million buys, which are awful.
Jack, how important is getting the director of football ahead of a new manager, or can they, are they directly linked, or can they be done independently of each other?
I said on this one of these YouTube shows, probably maybe even upwards of 2 months ago, before officially Patici was out, I said the next manager is going to want to know who he reports to. And it's very difficult unless you're going to hire a manager who says, I don't want a director of football and I'm going to do the job, which again, we can argue whether or not that's a wise move. But, I see it as critical. I'm not saying you can't hire a manager. I can't say you can't hire a manager prior to the director of football, but as been reported widely that, that's what Nagelsmann is saying, is like, I want to know who's going to be, bringing the deals and bringing the players in, and so it just seems to make a lot of sense that this should be done either as a package or very quickly in succession, that you line up your director of football and you've got your short list of your managers and you kind of lay this out so that you can move very quickly. And now I realize that a whole lot probably depends on what Carlo does over in Madrid, because I think even Paul or somebody on the pod recently made this comment that there's a domino effect, because people know that, if that job opens up, that's going to attract certain level of interest. And I realize that, but needless to say, I think it's critical. I mean, and I think the blueprint you mentioned, Sash, that, we need to get back to the club. We need a blueprint. We need a direction. And I would say that Daniel ought to read the chairman's letter that was written by some guy named Daniel prior to hiring Nuno, because that was the blueprint. That's the plan. It was written in ink. It just has been crumpled up and thrown away. And of course, it leads to the cynics saying exactly what they say. But actually, that is what you've got to do. That is what will make everyone happy. If you execute that, even if you don't succeed, even if you just make an honest, sincere effort to do that, I think you get a lot of credit, right?
Yep. Agreed, mate.
Yeah. Gibbo, who's the latest names being put forward for director of football? We got any?
There was a guy, Spurs. Is it Spurs? Who'd been, I think he'd been at Hoffenheim. I think he's been like chief scout and worked his way up at different. He's been around at a few different clubs. I'm not sure if he was ever at the German clubs when Nagelsmann was there. I don't know if their paths crossed. And there's the guy from Brentford. And, I think Brentford are a well-run club. Obviously, if you could do what Brentford have done by getting players in, but you've got to obviously take it up a notch, haven't you, when you come to Spurs? Because, we are, as in stature of club, we are a notch up from Brentford. But, it's like we all spoke about earlier. This is the guy that needs to come in. These are the people that set the culture, aren't they? And stuff like that as well, with how they do their work and having succession plans. But you need, for when coaches, when you get rid of coaches and when players move on, if we're going to go down the path that we've all spoke about tonight and where we want to see the club go, then we want to be doing this ASAP, don't we? It's like I always said about getting a coach in. If they'd come in now and got their ideas across, they could have looked at the player. I mean, any coach who's coming in can still get to look at the players' videos and watching the matches and stuff like that. But I think it needs to be done pretty quick, whether it's done at the same time. But, what we don't want is another long, drawn-out manager. I mean, it's pretty long already, a really long, drawn-out Nuno. I think Levy sort of knows who he wants. I think it's pretty much obvious the candidate he wants to take over. It's just getting this, getting a director of football who's willing to come in and work under that structure as well, and he's happy with what Levy's going to do, and then they'll when Munn comes in, they'll be left with it, because it's obvious Munn and Levy are out there doing that now, isn't it? It's so obvious, like you said, starts work in July. Load of rubbish. They're working on it now, aren't they? So.
Yeah, well, they need to be, don't they? I think as well. That's the key thing. I mean, like I say, there's a lot to be sorted out, and you like to think that very soon after the season finishes, i.e., within a week or two, that we've at least got something announced around the director of football and the manager, if not at least the director of football.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, obviously, Dave O's in the chat. He's been having a dig at Dempsey. We're talking about the managers. We're waiting for the bingo shout, aren't we? When's Dave going to drop in the old, if we're talking about Nagelsmann and stuff like that, when's he going to drop in his bingo saying? Well, I'll wait for it to come up, mate. And if he comes up, mate, I'll shout bingo. All right, Craig.
What is the bingo? Just remind me what it is.
Can't tell you, can I? I'll say it when it comes up, when we talk about Nagelsmann.
I think it may have already come. I don't know.
I'll have a look. You guys carry on.
Scroll. I don't know. I think it may have already come if I'm on the same page as you. I might not be, but I think it may.
No, Enoch out, Levy out. That's he always says
that's not it. Yeah, standard. Yeah. All right, excellent. So looking ahead, then we've got 3 fixtures.
Here we go, bingo! Housey.
Inevitable, wasn't it? I must admit, I thought you already said that. The game against Villa this weekend, Jack. How do you see that going?
I'd like to see a similar blueprint. I said on the pod when we got to the Crystal Palace preview, and I said, what you don't want is Eze and Zaha and Elise with lots of time and running at your back line. And how you prevent that is you don't give them the ball. So, how do you contain Watkins? You don't give them the ball. You play higher up the pitch. And I really like the idea of Emerson and Porro combination, because, Emerson has the speed and athleticism to cover a lot of ground. And that gives a lot of license for Porter to stay high up the pitch and help press, as you're saying, because you're right. You need that extra body up there. And I think if you press Villa, you should have success. You should be able to get some turnovers and create some opportunities. You just don't want to give that crowd. You take the crowd out of the game by not letting them have the ball. And if you do that, then it's going to be a much easier task, because this is a 6-point. If you care about European football, and I know everybody does it, but if you care about European football or just where you finish, period, this is a 6-pointer, and you should be getting 3 points. They're playing much better, but they're beatable. They're not unstoppable at all. And if you play your game, you play tight. I think you should do well.
I mean, if we beat Villa, Gibbo, and I know it's a big thing in your household for reasons I'm sure you'll expand on, we pretty much guarantee we finish above them, barring us having an absolute meltdown in goal difference in the final 2 games of the season. So big things at stake for you in your household.
Just don't lose. We cannot lose to her. I mean, I
forgot Gibbo. Sorry.
All my wife's family are Villa.
Villa fans. I forgot.
Big Villa fans. This is a big Villa area around here, so a lot of my friends. So they've started piping up for the first time in 12 years, the past few months, right? So we cannot lose that game. My biggest fear was that the crowd. They've not been in Europe for a long time. They've spent, they've had more time in the Championship, but they are at it. They've got a good coach. When I talk about Spurs, he's got the same players. They were bottom 6. He's took over their top 6, and they're challenging for Europe. So that's what a decent coach can do, and they have got a decent coach. But that crowd will be absolutely bang up for it. If they beat us, they're in Europe. They get to go on an away day, get some European away days. They'll be loving that. And my fear is that crowd will be bang at it. and we will do what we've done at Liverpool and what we did at Newcastle. We'll wilt under the pressure. So we've got to quieten that crowd. We've done all right there in recent years. They've beat us at our place. We've just got to go there and get a result. I don't care how they do it. Bring back Jose for one game. Stink the joint out. Just do.
I love, right? This is honestly the
Turgid
most.
football's okay for Saturday. All right, I love
exactly, yeah. But Gibbo, this is the most passionate I've seen you about getting a result. Honestly, your face is like
get it.
You can feel the tension.
I wish I had a stasis booth or something like that where I can go and hide in it and they can just like literally I won't wake up till after the game. And if we lose, I'll just say to the missus, just do it next time we beat you. Wake me up then. I can't handle it.
Gibbo, are you going to have like a little family gathering? You're going to come together, watch the game together in my own.
I'm going to sit in a room on my own and watch it.
Brilliant. Sash, how do you see the game going?
I think if we set up in the same way that we did against Crystal Palace, then I'm fairly confident that we'll come out with a decent result and with the 3 points, to be honest. But I think we've got to hold our nerve for the first 15-20 minutes. We can't let them get any goals, not even any good chances within that first 15-20 minutes. I think that's going to be really, really key. But I feel confident. I do feel confident. But I want the same setup. I definitely want the same setup. If we don't have the same setup, then I'm a bit worried. Yeah.
What do we need to do in these final 3 games, Jack, to secure 7th and conference?
9 points.
9 points. Yeah.
I haven't done. I know I've got an image on my phone that I could pull up that shows. I know we could finish mathematically, between 3rd and 10th, depending on the points haul and what everyone else does. But there's no easy games at the end because whether you're playing someone challenging for Europe or you're playing someone who's fighting for their lives, which could be the situation in the last game of the year. There's nothing other than win all 3.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's no reason that you can't. Again, there's a blueprint that we saw for keeping it tight, keeping it organized, not letting things get out of hand, playing a little higher up the pitch. Crystal Palace is not a great side, but they're competent. And if you make mistakes against them, they can hurt you. And the same thing with Villa. So to your point, Sash, is survive the first 15 minutes. And again, I keep saying, if you have the ball, that tends to help survive the first 15 minutes. Don't give them opportunities. And if that means a little bit, like you're saying, give that a little bit of turgid football where Pierre, goes sideways and backwards for 15 minutes, so be it, right? That's fine with me. Because player by player, they're not better than Spurs. So I say keep the ball, same formation, same tactics. I don't think they're going to, be able to exploit that too badly. And let's hope that they get the result. That's what I expect.
No, great. Gibbo's getting both barrels in the group chat.
Yeah, I'm going to go at my combine harvester.
If we get 9 points, Jack, I agree. By the way, we did a few weeks ago on this week's show. We did how many points do you think we'll get between now and the end of the season? And I think I was quite negative, and
we all
were at that point, weren't we? But 9 points, that could get a 6, couldn't it, Gibbo?
Leeds are going to have to win last game of the season, lads, to stay up. So let's not get overconfident, eh? And we've got them, haven't we?
Leeds are bad, though. They'll be up for a fight, won't they? But they are bad.
They'll need to beat Tottenham Hotspur on the last game of the season to stay up.
What if that last game of the season we go to Leeds with a win, gets us 6th?
Yeah, brilliant. I'm just taking one game at a time at the minute, Craig.
Okay.
I can't think of anything else but the Villa game on Saturday.
Gibbo, you're too boring. Sash?
Yeah.
Sash, does 9 points get a 6th?
Yes. Yep. It's all in our hands. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We were in a similar position last season.
Yeah.
So, do you know what? If we turn up, we really, really want it, and we do the same thing we did last year. Why not?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Brighton have got. I've got the fixtures up here. Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City. I mean, how many points are they getting out of that, Jack?
Well, I would have said that they would have had 3 points this past week, obviously, when they got completely obliterated by Everton. But I'm done predicting. But you would think reasonably that they have Southampton will be done, so that's 3. But Newcastle and Arsenal and Man City, if they got 2 or 3 points out of that, that would be probably not a bad result because all those teams are fighting for something important, and they've got to go on the road to 2 of them, right? Yeah. So it's again, they have it in their hands. If they have the points to get, they could. Doesn't matter if we get 9, they have the ability to overtake us because of the games they haven't played yet. But again, I don't know how much you're getting out of at Newcastle and at Arsenal and home to the City. So I agree. 9 points should get 6 and keep behind us.
Yeah, I think so. Come on, you Spurs. 9 points, 3 out of 3, Gibbo.
So is everyone? So it sounds like everyone on this show is pro Europe, regardless. They're not of the camp that says let's finish 8th or 9th to prove a point, or give the next manager more time on the training pitch, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I'd rather finish 6th and get Europa than end up 7th in the Conference League. If I was being honest, but I'm not going to knock the Conference League if we take it seriously.
Well,
the Conference League. Sorry. Carry on.
Jack, I'll make one pitch for Conference League. I'm not saying I want it, but I'll make one pitch for that. If you take some of those kids from the U17, U18, and you let them play the Conference League, right? And therefore you actually put your best squads during the FA Cup and the League Cup and make it and try to win one or both of those. Then I could see the saying, okay, we'll let the kids get some experience and play in Europe. And with players like Danjuma, if he's still in the club or whatever. But in other words, you could use those players and get them that experience and show them that path to the first team that's going to have us lose Mundell, that because we haven't had that path presented to them the last few years, right? So you try to keep those kids in the club, and you put all of your best 11 as possible into the domestic cups. I'd be okay with that.
Yep. But Jack, you can play. It's about managing your squad, isn't it? Like you said, give some of the younger talent, because there obviously is some decent young talent at Spurs. Give them a go. Say to players like Højbjerg, I need you in this team. I need you to help these young kids. I need you. I'm giving you. I want you to bring some of these kids along. Show them what it's really like to be out there. But because you're playing those games, you can play Son in one. You can play Son, but Kane in another. You don't. You can drop real decent first team players.
You could drop 5.
Yeah, but you can mix it up because these games, as everybody, they should be quite easy. As long as you go in there with the right attitude and the right application, we can navigate our way through the group relatively straightforward. Hopefully,
play Richie at number 9.
Yeah, and then as the games do get tougher as you go on, then you might need to start fielding stronger teams, but those kids have had experience. So if you need to play them in an FA Cup game or in a League Cup game or in a Premier League game, they've had some experience of playing with first team players. But don't say to the players who are coming in to play in that tournament, you're the B team. Say to the players, what we want you to do is we want you to, because there'll be some first team players that actually do need minutes. There'll always be some first team players who are coming back that are coming back from injury. Mm-hmm. So, and then if you are going to put a Son, like I said, or a Højbjerg or a Kane, say, I want you to bring these kids along. I'm giving you that responsibility. It's not because I'm putting you out in the stiffs. Oh, this is what I will need you to do. We need to build some, and just go in there with the right attitude and the right mentality. And they're extra games, and it's a trophy. We haven't won a trophy in 20 odd years, No. So I agree with you. I agree with you, Jack.
Yeah, just quickly, just to go back to the remaining 3 games. You talked about Gibbo earlier about our midfield perhaps needing something a bit more creative in there. Do we expect to see Bissouma come into the team between now and the end of the season? He's obviously on Instagram. He's put lots of pictures up of him back in training.
Who are you asking? Sorry, Craig.
Anyone.
I'd love to see him.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. I think it just needs to be right though for us, because if he's not 100% and we need to get the wins because that's what we want to do and we want to get into Europe, then we need to make sure that you get some minutes elsewhere.
Yeah,
Sash, what a player
Jack,
next season to come in for a new coach. New coach, fully fit, full pre-season, a progressive midfielder who can also.
If he's allowed to play that way,
yeah,
that's a big thing, because I think that's what we've done. We've done him a disservice because he's come into the team. We know what he could do at Brighton, and we've not let him do that here. It's
a football cliche, isn't it? But it'll be like a new player. It'll be like a new signing, really.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him come in. If you're up 1 or 2 goals in these last 3 matches in the last 25 minutes, and you just need more. You want to hold the ball. Bring in another person who can hold the ball, and that's the perfect way to integrate him. Is you bring Pierre out, who's been running to the ground, or Skippy or whatever, and bring him in so that now you're going to help relieve pressure. You're going to help get us out of trouble because he can do that. We know he can do it, but just give him, like you're saying, give him 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, we've got. we're going to do another show. I know there's been a few comments in the chat about who we keep and who we get rid of out of the squad for next season. We'll do that probably maybe at the end of the season, Gibbo, I suspect, mightn't we? But one name I do want to mention is our fan favourite Ndombele. He's just won the title, hasn't he?
He was on a team that won the title. Let's be fair.
Yeah, he was on the team that won the title. Yes, he could be our saviour at number 10, couldn't he?
Could be.
I've said this as if you were to take Danjuma out because for whatever reason he doesn't want to stay and you don't want to sign him, you could absolutely. I could see both GLC or Ndombele with the new coach who comes off the bench as an option. I mean, the guy's getting paid an enormous amount of money, and you can't move that contract. So I could see it actually working, him playing behind a Kane and a Son, or a Kane and a Richarlison behind it. Again, not to start, but that's how AC Milan used him. What did he get? 15, 18 minutes a game, here and there, just to do things that he can do. I mean, we're stuck with him. Might as well get some money out of him.
Heard it here first.
You're not going to sell him for anything close. I mean, you're going to end up paying his wages if he goes somewhere else. I mean, I'm probably just stupid.
Somebody will take the same sort of gig.
Yeah, they will. All right, then. Well, we've been going for an hour 20, which is our normal run time on Wednesday night. So I think we will call it a night there. Sash, thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've been a hit, certainly for me and for Gibbo as well, I'm sure, and Jack. So how'd you find it? Enjoy it?
Yeah, do you know what? It was great. It's been fantastic. Not just talk about Spurs Reach, but actually just talk about football. It's just like being in the pub with the lads. So it's been fantastic. But can I make one really quick comment about Spurs Reach? And lots of people have this misgiving about the group. It's not just for people from diverse and underrepresented ethnic backgrounds. It's for everyone who believes that football's for everyone and doesn't want any discrimination of any kind in the game. That's what we're about. So we've got people from all walks of life, allies, and people from diverse and ethnic, underrepresented ethnic backgrounds. So just wanted to lay that out there because lots of people think that they're not welcome, but they are.
So you let people in from the Midlands?
Definitely. 100%. Yeah.
Sash won't mind me turning up in my combine.
I'll give you plenty of warning.
So, some would say, Gibbo, that you are Combine Harvest is not well represented in the Spurs Stadium. I think.
I don't think it is.
No, so I think we should definitely get you in, Gibbo.
Well, if I've got anywhere to park, I've got to have a big parking space, haven't I?
That's fine.
Speak to Steve about that. Speak to Steve about that. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's obviously Sash being on the fan the representative board, he can absolutely put that to Levy to say we need a space for Gibbo's combine harvester.
Please.
Number one on the list, right? It's the top of the list right now.
Thank you, Sash.
Yeah, no, brilliant. It's been a great debut, Sash, and you are welcome anytime you want to come and talk about Spurs in the Cheese Room. So yeah, definitely hope to see you again soon. Jack, we never had an intro. How's things been in America this week? All good?
Well, it's been a tough week at the Hoyle household. You know, I missed the last show I was on because our darling cat went missing, and she's still missing. So I think that tells you what you need to know there. So that's unfortunate. And I ripped up my knee, the one I had my ACL surgery on 2 years ago. I blew the meniscus and the MCL sprain, but at least it doesn't require a year-long rehab. So hopefully by August I'll be back trying to rip it up again on the pitch. But yeah, I think
was that playing football? Playing football?
Yeah, it
Jack,
was. It was in the over 50 championship game. We were down 2-1 with 10 men, and we were pushing for the equalizer, and we should have had it. But I was just ripped it up trying to make a tackle. So it is what it is.
I'm sorry to hear that, Jack. Hopefully you're back on the pitch in no time. And
if my wife lets me.
Well, that's the other thing now. Yeah, I mean, are you milking it though at home, Jack? Is it? I can't do anything. Feet up.
Oh, she's great. She's a former nurse. She jumped right in and helped me out. But I'm mobile now. I'm good.
Good, excellent. And yeah, Jack H has only got one knee. David's been on fire tonight, hasn't he? Gibbo, good. Do you want to say?
No, I've had a really good evening. Really enjoyed it. Bit of bullying going on in the chat from Davo, but don't expect anything else. It's because I called him out on Davo Bingo. Just waiting for him to bring Donna Cullen's son up, or what's he call it? The go-karting track underneath. So yeah. I expect it. I expect nothing less from Dave. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoyed the comments. Enjoyed the chat in here.
Yeah. And of course, we can't leave Gibbo, can we, without thanking Jack, because obviously, Jack, you left us, deserted us to go to pastures new and a higher status, if you like, within the Cheese Room. So Sash, you may or may not know, but Jack made his debut on the verbal pod. What do you call it? The Spotify, if you like, the Cheese Room podcast. And we actually had a running syndicate, and whether Jack would come back or not with his newfound fame. So we're grateful you've come back, Jack. But you did great. The pod. I listened to the podcast on Spotify, and you was brilliant, I have to say.
That was fun.
So anyone
this is more enjoyable.
Definitely.
Yeah, listen to the audio pod, the Cheese Room, brilliant.
We'll snip that and make sure Franco gets that.
That's what I give it to you.
But no, it's anyone that's listening. Obviously, we in addition to the YouTube, we also do the podcast, and they're a fantastic listen as well. But yeah, other than that, the final thing to say to everyone is good night, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Spurs.